So we have some interesting news when it comes to WrestleMania 37, specifically WWE's attempted attendances for both Nights 1 and Nights 2 of the Showcase of the Immortals this year. Now, WWE officials are looking to have 45,000 fans at Raymond James Stadium for each night of WrestleMania 37. Now, a few months ago, the hope was put that 30,000 fans would be inside Raymond James Stadium, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. But a meeting held this past week, a new goal of 45,000 fans for each night was set. Now, the city of Tampa held a meeting on Wednesday, March 10, with representatives from local hotels, and they were told that WWE is pushing to run Raymond James Stadium at 75% capacity for both nights of WrestleMania, Saturday, April 10 and Sunday, April 11. The capacity for a WrestleMania with a stage would have been 60,000, which is where the 45,000 figure comes from. WWE usually exaggerates the announced attendance number for WrestleMania events, so it's possible that they go with a number between 70 and 75,000, but it will depend on what is best for public relations. They may not exaggerate the number as high as they usually do because of the COVID-19 pandemic and how that would look. Now, this is according to, as I mentioned, the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Wrestling Inc. are also reporting this as well. 45,000 on both nights during a pandemic. And look, I know whenever I talk about this, people have contrasting opinions on all of this, and that's fine. That's fine. Everyone can have their opinion, and I know it differs between country to country. I think it's this week we celebrated the 1 year anniversary of really when this pandemic truly first exploded. Especially in the likes of North America and Europe. I mean, it was 12 months ago that the NBA shut down, Tom Hanks tested positive for COVID, and then it felt like overnight, didn't it? Everything shut down. And I understand that in the past 12 months, obviously, it's gone like this. It goes up and down, and things change and things evolve, and you would hope that we know more about it now than we did 12 months ago. But in my opinion, and this is just what it is, and this is what this account and this channel is all about, it's about opinion. But in my opinion, I think a number like 45,000 fans is incredibly alarming. Incredibly alarming. And I understand that there has been a bit of a development since between now and when we had the Super Bowl a couple of months ago. Or was it in February we had the Super Bowl? And the Super Bowl numbers, and I mean, as far as we're aware, that wasn't a super spreader event. The stadium, I thought, for the Super Bowl looked great. Obviously, you had the socially distant fans, and then you had the cardboard cutout of fans, and it looked fantastic. It really did look great. But to be running an event in a large stadium like Raymond James Stadium at 75% capacity at any stage of the pandemic, I don't even care if this is right at the end of the pandemic and in a couple of weeks' time we're completely back to normality, and we won't be, by the way, but let's just for argument's sake that we were, I would still say it's a massive risk. It's a massive, massive risk. And I mean, it said it in the report, didn't it? It said it in the report that WWE, usually when it comes to their attendance figures for WrestleMania, they look to massively exaggerate it, don't they? I mean, the one of the most famous ones is WrestleMania 3, and they talk about, was it 93,000? In reality, it was less than that. When it comes to, I think it was something like 70,000 in reality or something like that. When it comes to WrestleMania 32 in Texas, in Arlington, Texas, at AT&T Stadium, they said at the time it's a new attendance record. I think they said it was 102,000 fans in attendance. In reality, it was something like 80,000. And you go, well, where did you get the extra 20,000 from? Then they start getting creative because they'll say, wow, in actuality, we're talking about not just paid fans, but we're also talking about fans that got in there for free, and we're talking about people backstage, and we're talking about people that work inside the stadium, and we're talking about, I don't know, lights. I mean, they will go with ridiculous lengths because they've been called out on it before, especially now that they're a publicly traded company. I believe in sort of 2016, 2017, one of their shareholders, their stakeholders, actually called them out on it and said, you said 102,000, I'd like to know where you got that number from. And then you had the people on the call going, and then they come out of these things going, well, it's people in the building and across a couple of days and all this kind of stuff. It's just ludicrous. And you would hope that, considering at this point, I mean, I get it. The reason why they exaggerate this kind of stuff in the past is to make WWE look big and to make WrestleMania look like this giant event and say, look at us. Look how many people we can attract to be in one place at one period of time to celebrate this phenomenon that is WrestleMania. Isn't the WWE great? Aren't we better than ever? Look how many people we can attract to watch our product and get into our buildings. Now isn't the time to be bragging about that. Look how many people we can have here. That isn't the time. Look how many people we can have in close proximity to each other when there's a pandemic and a contagious virus going around. I mean, that is crazy. I think when it comes to why the ticket information was delayed so much, I mean, it was announced, wasn't it, Monday, finally, that was the tagline, they were using The Rock's tagline, finally, that fans were coming back in attendance for WrestleMania, and finally the ticket details were being made about WrestleMania and all that kind of stuff, and it made you wonder before then, why is WWE waiting so long? Everyone knew that fans were coming back. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, they'd been open about fans attending WrestleMania 37, but for ages, for a really long time, WWE didn't release the details when it came to the ticket information for WrestleMania. And now we know why. We know why because they were hoping, let's stretch this out as long as we can. Hopefully, as we get closer to the date, we'll get a bit of a green light to have more and more people actually attend. And that's why they did it. 45,000 fans. I mean, it just seems madness. It just seems madness, doesn't it? And I get it. I get people have been vaccinated, right? That's great. That's great. Doesn't stop the spread of COVID, though, does it? I mean, you can still get and contract COVID-19 if you have the vaccine. It just means that you won't get deathly sick or possibly die or have major complications like that. So the idea that this won't be a super spreader event because people are vaccinated isn't necessarily true. I mean, obviously the risk goes down, but are you telling me that every single person inside that stadium on April 7th and April 8th is going to be vaccinated? I don't know. You're talking about people outside of the stadium as well. Yes, you're going to have 45,000 fans inside the stadium, but what about the people just in the local Tampa Bay area? The amount of people that are going to flood in to the state and then go out into other states, that's a concern as well. This is the issue when it comes to any major sporting event, which sometimes people don't really think about. They just think about the people inside the stadium. And a lot of the time, you've got a lot of people floating around it anyway. And look, I know the influx of people isn't going to be as global as WrestleMania usually is. Usually, you've got people coming from all over the world. You've got people coming from the UK, Australia, South America, obviously based in North America, all over Europe. I mean, every single continent pretty much, so you have someone representing there at WrestleMania. It's not going to be like that this year. I don't think many people are going to travel internationally to come to WrestleMania, at least I would hope not, because again, that's incredibly reckless. But you're still going to have people come from all over the United States, at the very least, come over to WrestleMania, especially when there's 45,000 people potentially attending. So again, you have this massive influx of people coming from all over the country, and then they're there for a couple of days, and then they go back. That's how these things spread. And again, at the end of the day, when it comes down to anything like this, what's it about? It's all about money, isn't it, at the end of the day? WWE has taken, despite having a very lucrative year, if you would listen to their shareholders and investors call, because of the contracts that they've signed, they've still been financially hit by not running live events pretty much for 12 months now, and they want to have WrestleMania not only be a big reset for their storylines and fans attending anything like that, they want it to be a big financial success. So that's why they're getting as many fans as they can in that building. And I know some people might argue, well, isn't this a really bad look for WWE? Isn't this negative PR? Aren't people going to crucify them in the media and all this kind of stuff? The answer is maybe. Maybe the media will have a field day with this. Maybe they will get bad press and bad PR because of this. But ultimately, and I always say this about the WWE, and I don't mean this to bury them or be completely negative or anything of that, the stretch of the imagination there. But when it comes to negative PR, WWE doesn't care. WWE have never cared about negative PR. I mean, we could rattle off things that have happened in the last 12 months alone that WWE has negative PR about. And at the end of the day, and Vince McMahon and their shareholders and whoever feel that they're bulletproof, because essentially they are. Because if past scandals are anything to go by, WWE always recovers, and they have negative PR for a few weeks and then they brush it off and then they carry on, and then they do WrestleManias that are massively financially successful. Then they have years like the pandemic where they still sign contracts with billions of dollars. So WWE doesn't care about negative PR. I mean, the last 12 months alone, you've got firing someone for third-party platforms, telling all of their independent contractors they can't make extra money during a pandemic when they're making less money on third-party platforms like YouTube, Twitch, and Cameo and things like that. You've got all of the Saudi Arabia deals that they've got. They've got like a 10-year deal, and they take millions and millions of dollars off the Saudi government to put on these shows. And there's just reports released in the United States that the Saudi government might have ordered, murders of journalists and all that kind of stuff. Then you've got certain WWE superstars that can't perform on those Saudi shows because they're homosexuals. You've got female performers that can't perform because they're a female. You've got people like Aleister Black that can't perform because they have a certain tattoo. Then you've got the speaking out movement where dozens of WWE superstars have allegations against them. And don't get me wrong, I understand that they're allegations and they're difficult to prove. Yet you fire some people, but then you've got some people who have very strong allegations against them, particularly on the NXT UK brand, still heavily featured on the show. You've got the Velveteen Dream still on NXT. You've got Austin Theory still on NXT. Jordan Devlin was on NXT this past week. They've all got allegations against them. NXT, as I mentioned, Sid Scala, Joe Coffey, the list goes on and on. They're still under contract with the company. This is a company that historically have had scandal after scandal after scandal, and they always survive. So the fact that they will get negative PR about having 45,000 fans each night inside the stadium at 75% capacity, people like myself can say that it's craziness. People like you watching this can say it's craziness, but it's not going to stop WWE from doing it. It's not. It took a pandemic to stop fans coming into WrestleMania last year, and even during those first few weeks when the pandemic was still raging and events were getting cancelled and postponed. Do you remember WrestleMania? It took a while. People forget this as well. It took a while for WWE to announce that WrestleMania 36 last year was being moved to the Performance Center in front of 0 fans. They tried their utmost best to get that show on last year inside of a stadium with people in attendance. They tried, and it got to the point where essentially every single government at a local level said, no, we're not going to do it. And WWE, their hands was forced, and they panicked. Last time WrestleMania was pre-taped last year because everything was shutting down. Everything was in lockdown, so they panicked and thought, okay, we've got to do this over 2 nights. Let's get the show filmed because we don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks. They panicked. But they pushed it. They pushed it right up until the last minute to try and get that show on. So it shouldn't come as a massive surprise, really, that they're going to have this amount of fans in attendance because WWE didn't care about the pandemic. They care about money. They've always cared about money. Vince McMahon, at the end of the day, it's a business, and when it comes to business, it's all about that. It's all about money. So 45,000 fans, I know we're just under a month or so away, and I know when it comes to the vaccine rollout, it's been actually substantial, and it's been very successful in the sense that more and more people every single day are getting vaccinated, and we're getting closer and closer to this feeling of going back to normality, whatever the new normal is. I think the idea that we go back to what we were like a year ago, I don't know if necessarily that is going to happen for a long, long time, but whatever the new normal is, we're heading towards it. Are we going to get there in the next 4 weeks or so? I just don't see that. I don't see that. And I know different states, states are different. I know there's a reason WWE have stayed in Florida throughout this entire pandemic because they have relationships with Florida at the local government level. They've funded certain, governors and senators and you name it. They funded their re-election campaigns, and there's a reason they stay in Florida because they were also deemed an essential business. Yes, in the likes of news and other real essential businesses. WWE, that entertainment company, that pro wrestling company, was deemed as an essential business throughout 2020, which is why they continue to operate as well. So there's lots of reasons why WWE are doing this, and they're going to get away with it. I just think that it's just at any point in the pandemic, as I mentioned, even if the day after WrestleMania they said, you know what, actually everything's okay now, normal, I would still say, look, that's 75% capacity. The Super Bowl was at what? Was it 30? Or it was nowhere near 75%. You look at Revolution this past Sunday, that was at 30% capacity, and that was 1,300 people. And where they've gone, how they've gone from 30% capacity in most stadiums operating at 30% capacity to 75 is just. 75 is 3/4 full. Again, then you start to say, how much social distancing can you even do at 75% full? The whole point at 30%, isn't it that it's safely socially distanced and they can account for all of the social distancing that fans will be doing and all that kind of stuff? 75%, can you even have equidistant social distance? I don't know. There is just a logistical concern there, isn't there? But look, WWE, they're going to do it. They're going to make money doing it, and people are going to celebrate it. I think it's not going to stop people watching either. I think that's probably worth mentioning as well. We can sit here and we can say that it's terrible. We can say that we think it's risky, and I've just done that. I've spent the last 15 minutes or so saying that, but I'm still going to be watching come April 7th or 8th, and I'm sure everyone else will be too. It's just, I don't know. It just seems one of those things, isn't it, where you do wonder on April 10th and April 11th, probably I got the dates wrong there, but it's just... It'll be interesting to see if officially that's the number. We haven't had official confirmation, it must be said, from WWE that that's the number they're going towards as well. So between now and then, I'm sure things can change. If they float out that number and there's such a big uproar, maybe they will change. I doubt it, but it's a big number. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion, especially something on this topic that I'd love to hear your opinion on it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.